An intruder standing right here over her husband's dead body.
But when the police bear down, the weeping widow changes her story.
Okay, you got me. He shot himself.
And keeps changing it.
What was the first thing that went through your mind?
Staged.
Tonight, she's pointing fingers in every direction.
She asked me if her own son could have killed Greg.
Who's she trying to protect? Who's she trying to destroy?
Somewhere along the way, reality left. Lie after lie after lie.
Truth or consequences. Plus, be careful who you break up with.
This woman must have had crazy written all over her.
When a woman let down by her ex unleashes her fury and an avalanche of lies.
She was one step ahead of me the whole time.
Cyberstalking, claiming abuse, even sending his naked photo to his co-workers. And that's just for starters.
This is a death threat. This is, I'm going to kill someone if you don't do what I said.
Tonight, we're stalking the stalker for the truth. Right between the lies. Here's David Muir.
Good evening, and tonight here, a mother, a wife living in her beautiful home, then an intruder who breaks in and shoots her husband dead. A horror she tried to shield her little girl from, who was sleeping in a nearby room. But was she shielding everyone from what really happened? Matt Gutman with the tapes tonight, finding the truth right between the lies.
Drill a well in Keller, Texas. Don't get crude, you get cash. And 40-year-old Greg Williams was rolling in it, a self-made businessman getting rich with his computer security company. Now sharing a little palace on the prairie with his wife, 42-year-old Michelle, and her 4-year-old daughter, Michaela. Greg and Michelle both twice divorced, but it felt like this third marriage would be the charm. And Michelle's grown sons from previous relationships, Lee and Andrew O'Brien, say her marriage to Greg was a fairy tale.
He always treated her like a queen.
Anything she wanted, she got.
The family renting a McMansion with a pool out back, his and her Mercedes in the garage.
Money. He's got the money. He's got the party lifestyle. He's accomplished, and he's head over heels for her.
Quite a change for the woman who'd struggled as a teen mom to raise 3 kids, living hand to mouth.
We were living in motel rooms if we could, bouncing around, couch surfing.
Michelle, now the kind of bride who shows a little leg. Greg, the kind of guy who buys his wife a yogurt shop to keep her busy. Perfect, what with her new taste for the sweet life. Greg spending his spare time on alpha male activities, karate chopping, cinder blocks, and bodybuilding.
He was like a frat boy, like literally through and through. He was a jock, but a genius at the same time.
But one October night, the cowboy Camelot came to an end with a single gunshot.
Netcom 911, where is the emergency?
That's Michelle Williams calling for help. Greg has been shot.
Oh my God,
This is the actual dash cam video from some of the first officers arriving on the scene when they discover Michelle distraught with a nasty goose egg on her cheek.
Who else is in the house?
My 4-year-old and my husband.
Your 4-year-old and the husband.
Hoping to shed more light on the attack, police bring Michelle, their only witness, down to the station. Then, as a sympathetic officer holds her hand, Michelle tells Sergeant John McGrew an unbelievable story.
Walk me through the story that she told you.
She was asleep, woke up by an intruder.
Michelle says she woke up as an intruder in black was breaking in through the back door. The bandit passed right by 4-year-old Michaela, asleep on the living room couch, and approached the bedroom. There he ran into Michelle and whacked her, knocking her out.
She was struck by an unknown object.
Police later find a wrench at the scene, right sized to plant that painful bump on her cheek.
That's what actually kind of
It knocked me out.
Michelle says she's still groggy when she sees the man in black standing over Greg. There is a gunshot, and the intruder disappears through a back door.
I screamed and I ran over to Greg and I reached for him. I grabbed a hold of his hand and I felt blood running down the side.
Greg has been shot once in the head. And eventually, there in the interview room, Sergeant McGrew informs Michelle her husband is dead.
There's not much I can say in this. Greg's deceased. Okay.
The widow Williams is inconsolable.
Now back to that developing story in Keller.
This story catches the eye of the media,
The victim's wife called 911.
including TV's queen of crime, Nancy Grace.
Cops find Daddy shot dead in his own bed.
Who was the intruder in black who shot Greg? Turns out there is no shortage of suspects because Greg's gilded life had a gritty side.
He had an edge to him. He rubbed people the wrong way.
There's drug dealers and bad people. He's kind of like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Michelle, trying to help identify that killer in black, mentions others police might want to talk to, including Greg's ex-wife, Kathy Williams.
Him and his ex-wife fight a lot.
She doesn't mention the two men in the world who may have disliked Greg the most. His stepsons, Army vets Andrew and Lee O'Brien.
How much did you not like him?
I hated him. I don't throw that word around lightly, but I literally hated him.
As sometimes happens, the stepchildren felt unwanted and unwelcome by their mother's new husband.
Was there ever a point that you were happy that he was dead?
Yes, immediately. When they told me he was dead, I was like, cool, whatever. How's Mom?
Both you and your brother openly say you despised Greg.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have anything to do with his murder?
No.
But police are beginning to wonder whether there was an intruder at all. Keller Police Captain Brenda Slovak, the lead investigator, drives us to the big house on Jacob Avenue and back to the night of the shooting.
And from right here, you could see the body.
Correct. I could see him in the bed.
But in that bedroom, there is not a single sign of a struggle. And in a house loaded with valuables and $20,000 in cash, the killer takes nothing and leaves nothing.
Did you ever find fibers or any DNA evidence or any other kind of evidence of an intruder?
No.
So what? You have an unknown assailant break into his home, shoot him dead, and leave for what?
And then police practically trip over the most important evidence in the case. Right here in these crime scene photos, the murder weapon, the very recently smoking gun, Greg's gun. Yep, shot with his own gun.
If someone's going to come into your home and try and do you some harm, normally you would bring your own gun.
And right next to the gun, the fired shell casing and the wrench possibly used to hit Michelle. Arranged neat as a pawn shop showcase.
You saw this picture. What was the first thing that went through your mind?
Staged. Staged.
When you were sitting across from her, did you ever think that this woman is lying to me?
Oh, yes, sir.
Back at the police station, a now suspicious Sergeant McGrew tells Michelle the crime scene suggests only two possibilities. Either she shot Greg, or Greg shot himself.
I did not hurt my husband, and he did not hurt himself. Okay. There was a man in my house.
She denies it no fewer than 6 times until this moment.
If he self-inflicted it, you need to tell me. I mean, this is it. I don't, we're getting wits end. You've got to be honest with me, Michelle. If he did it and you covered it up, just tell me.
He did.
Huh?
He did.
She said he did it.
He did it.
She immediately folds and went, okay, you got me. He shot himself.
Michelle admits she's told a pack of lies and now offers a second version of Greg's death. Michelle now says she was sleeping on the couch with 4-year-old Michaela. She hears the gunshot and goes into the bedroom to find Greg had shot himself. She cleaned it all up and arranged things to look like a home invasion.
I knew I had to make it look as if it was a burglary.
And get this, to really sell the story, Michelle says she hit herself in the face with that wrench.
I went like that thinking I'll just have a little bruise, and that really backfired bad.
Michelle says she only wanted to protect their 4-year-old daughter Michaela and Greg's reputation. After spending 5 hours in the interrogation room, police finally release Michelle, who soon finds consolation in comfort food.
The very morning after, Michelle Williams goes out to breakfast to IHOP and basically orders the lumberjack breakfast. She's not worried about her dead husband at all. She's living it up. Sausage, pancakes, eggs, the work.
But police are finding Michelle's stories hard to swallow. They have more questions than ever about the night Greg died. Like, how did 4-year-old Michaela sleep through a shooting in the next room?
And somehow Michaela, their daughter, slept through it all. How was that possible?
Could clues from a little girl help unravel the mystery of her father's death? Stay with us.
Right Between the Lies continues. Once again, Matt Gutman.
A curious feature story on the website of the Fort Worth, Texas newspaper about a new kettlebell workout club. The owner is one Shelley Williams, who may look familiar because at the time she's the most infamous widow in Texas. Her husband Greg shot in the head in their king-size bed in their king-size house. But now, less than a year after cremating her husband, Michelle is the very picture of a merry widow.
It's very upbeat, it's fast, everyone really has a good time with it.
Also having a good time, Michelle's employee, Gene Wallace.
You're in a group atmosphere, so it pushes you more than you push yourself.
Could call him an employee with benefits. A dozen years younger than Michelle, they're now a couple. Much has happened since that interrogation room where Michelle told two different stories about how her husband wound up with a bullet in his head. First, she said it was murder, then suicide. But police have been weighing the evidence. Based on the angle of the gunshot wound and other forensics, the medical examiner eliminated suicide and ruled Greg Williams' death a homicide. And remember, the crime scene showed no sign of an intruder.
Crime scenes don't lie, people do.
But something else bothered police, how that little girl, Greg and Michelle's daughter, Michaela, slept right through a shooting in the next room.
I think it's a reasonable possibility that children's Tylenol or something else was administered to the child.
Some sort of drug to make her sleep.
Yeah.
Police concluded only one person could have shot Greg, his own wife, Michelle Williams. The motive? Insurance that would pay out the better part of $1 million. That sobbing in the interrogation room when the cops told her Greg was dead? Crocodile tears. She was arrested and charged with murder. But Michelle doesn't sweat the small stuff. Soon, out on bail, there she is, swinging kettlebells with her new boyfriend. Her mind was also getting a workout. She tells her son, Andrew O'Brien, it really was murder. What's more, now she wonders whether the killer might be her own son, Andrew's brother, Lee.
She asked me, she said, do you think your brother could have done it? And she asked me if her own son could have killed Greg.
She had to plant a reasonable doubt that someone else could have been there that night. Someone else could have squeezed that trigger.
By pinning it on you?
Yes.
But police say Lee and Andrew O'Brien both have strong alibis. The brothers say they began to realize that Mommy Dearest might be a monster.
She doesn't even know what reality is anymore. She's been lying so long, and I think that somewhere along the way, reality left. And so she just kept going. She knew nothing else. Lie after lie.
They also remember how vengeful she could be if she thought a man was mistreating her.
She would, what I call, punish them. Kill dogs, attempt to kill dogs, poison dogs. And if someone would have like a saltwater fish tank, then she would pour Ajax in there or Drano and kill all these fish.
In Texas, a murder charge can land you on death row, but not Michelle. Her luck holds out.
I don't know how she managed to do it, but Michelle Williams managed to finagle a plea deal out of the state.
Prosecutors say Michelle cleaned the crime scene so well, they didn't have much of a case.
This is a circumstantial evidence case, there's no doubt about it. Of course, not in small measure because she had altered the crime scene.
The deal, announced in a press release, requires Michelle to plead guilty, not to the murder charge in the indictment, but tampering with evidence and deadly conduct. Instead of death, the recommended sentence will be just 18 years. In a jailhouse interview, Michelle seems pleased with her bargain.
With a plea deal, I'm looking at a couple of years before I'm out for parole. So I'm actually, if you could say, looking forward to getting the sentencing over with so I can start moving towards the end of this hell.
But before she can be sentenced, Michelle has another surprise.
She's pregnant just before sentencing. And not only is she pregnant, she's pregnant with twins.
Sentencing was deferred until after Michelle's due date. But prosecutors say the pregnancy turns out to be another lie to delay prison. The conception was an immaculate deception. But then, Michelle makes the mistake of a lifetime. She grants an interview to the national TV crime show 48 Hours.
Did you murder your husband, Greg?
No, I did not.
There she goes again. Michelle flip-flops on her story. She tells 48 Hours she's an innocent woman. And she pulls an old, tried and untrue story out of mothballs. The man in black did it.
There was an intruder in the house, and that person killed my husband.
So she had already pled guilty, and then she gets on national television and says, well, what I really meant was I'm not guilty. What I really meant is an intruder came in. I really meant that I have a good idea who the intruder was.
It doesn't play well with the judge.
If this story's true, this lady needs a trial.
He revokes the plea deal and orders Michelle to stand trial for murder. The woman accused of shooting her husband in the head just shot herself in the foot.
You have a Fifth Amendment right to remain silent for a reason. Our U.S. Constitution protects you from the actions of the state. What the U.S. Constitution cannot protect you from is yourself.
When we come back, court is in session. Michelle drags Greg's ex-wife Kathy back in the picture. Could she be Michelle's get-out-of-jail card?
I was in shock.
Stay with us.
"2020 continues with Matt Gutman.
At the Tarrant County Courthouse in Fort Worth, Texas, it's finally time for truth and consequences. Michelle Williams is on trial for the murder of her husband, Greg.
An elaborate cover-up. This story continues to evolve.
The media following every twist and turn in the murder case.
The motive was money. Tried and true, age-old money.
A fraud examiner says the Williams finances were mismanaged.
Lots of problems here, right?
They tended to be living beyond their means.
They both had their respective jobs in this case. His job was to make money, and her job was to spend money. And they were both very good at their jobs.
And prosecutors lay out their theory. Greg and Michelle fought over money that night. Greg hit Michelle or threw something, causing that goose egg on her cheek.
It's our suspicion that this is an injury that was caused in the fracas with her husband earlier in the evening that led to his demise.
Provoked, Michelle enacted a plan that would get her revenge and riches. Prosecutors say after Greg fell asleep, Michelle shot him in the head with his own gun, then arranging the evidence and cleaning up the crime scene to look like the killer was an intruder. Michelle brought to tears as gruesome photos of her dead husband are shown. Prosecutors are so successful in painting Michelle as a pants-on-fire caliber liar.
She lied about it, she lied about it, and when she finished lying about it, she kept on lying about it.
Her defense attorneys are forced to make a startling admission in open court.
Probably at this point, you have made up your mind, and rightly so, that Michelle, she lies.
But the most devastating witness to take the stand...
It's her own son, her own adult son. It's Andrew O'Brien.
He testifies his mother had concocted yet another whopper to save herself. She asked him to set up Greg's ex-wife, Kathy Williams, as the killer.
Michelle asked me to call some friends and have them frame Kathy. She said, I need you to call a friend, tell them go to Walmart, buy an extra large sweater, take that sweater out to the woods somewhere, fire a pistol so that the gunpowder gets on it.
She asked him to plant that sweater in Kathy's car where police would find it.
You were brought up to the witness stand to testify about your mother.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel?
God, it was probably the worst feeling I've ever had. When they asked me to point to Michelle Williams, I could not make eye contact.
As the defense presents its case, Michelle Williams' court-appointed attorneys say Greg was actually worth more to her alive.
Greg was Michelle's golden goose. He brought in over $500,000 in 2010 and over $800,000 in 2011. So what was her motive?
So how did he die? They go with Michelle's story number 2. Remember, that was the suicide theory.
Greg took his own life. That's what the physical evidence supports.
What do we know about Greg Williams? We know that he was competent in handling a firearm. We know that he was using steroids.
Michelle's attorneys argue Greg was driven to suicide by a plague of problems. Money trouble, issues with his teenage daughter from a previous marriage, and the recent suicide of a close friend. According to Greg's mother, nonsense. She says he was loving life.
He was very happy and bubbly and telling me all about the plans he had for the new house they were buying.
It was not a contact wound.
And prosecutors question whether suicide was even physically possible. Crucially, a gun expert testifies Greg was not, as you might expect in a suicide, shot at close range.
The muzzle of the firearm was further than 6 inches and closer than 24 inches.
This is 24 inches.
Prosecutors demonstrate the acrobatics required to have pulled the trigger from that distance.
Does it make any sense to you at all that somebody would lay back in their bed and hold this gun 11 inches away from their own head and fire into their head?
How do you get your hand to do that? How do you cock your wrist to do this?
The prosecution seemed very convincing. People who commit suicide don't do it that way.
He was a bodybuilder. I'm sure this was a pretty common stance for him. So it's not far-fetched that he would have just done this.
Another problem with the suicide theory pointed out to us at the crime scene. Although Greg's left hand is in view, his right hand, his shooting hand, was tucked under the covers.
So he would have had to have shot himself and then put his hand under the comforter.
Correct.
In their final defense of the suicide theory, Michelle's attorneys try to explain why she concocted that intruder story and staged the crime scene.
She's not a career criminal, ladies and gentlemen. This is not something she had time to think about. She panicked. She was working, like I said, to protect her baby girl, Michaela, who was in the other room.
She has tried to pull the wool over the eyes of family and friends and police and prosecutors and courts, the media, the community, and ultimately you. Don't let her get away with it.
After all of Michelle's Pinocchio moments, the intruder in black, the suicide theory, the imaginary twins, the jury comes back and hits Michelle right between the lies.
Ms. Williams, if you would stand, please. The verdict says we, the jury, find the defendant, Michelle Marie Williams, guilty of the offense of murder as charged in the indictment.
Michelle Williams, who had once been offered a plea deal of 18 years, is now sentenced to 60.
Do you think she could have gotten away with it?
I think she could have gotten away with it. If she had come up with the suicide story and stuck with the suicide story, she could have gotten away with it.
What do you think was the one thing that kept her away from freedom?
The fact that she couldn't keep her mouth shut.
Instead, Michelle is now serving what amounts to a life sentence. It's little solace for Andrew, who already considers his mother dead to him.
Would you say you have a mother?
No. I don't like to even consider her my mother. I had someone who gave birth to me, and that's it.
But he acknowledges that his twisted relationship with his mendacious mother has given him at least some direction.
She taught me exactly what not to do in life, and I've learned pretty well from it.
So you learned from example from her.
Right.
What not to do.
Exactly. And that's what I focus on, my family and my kids. And giving them everything I didn't have.
So what do you think about that mom asking her own adult son to pin this on someone else? Matt Gutman is live tweeting along with the rest of us tonight. Let us know. Use the hashtag ABC2020. And stay tuned here. If you've ever had a bad breakup, yours will pale in comparison. What one woman was willing to do to ruin her ex.
Coming up, when a casual breakup leads to all-out war on an ex-boyfriend.
Every time you see a police car, are they coming for me?
But wait till you see the photo she sent to his co-workers and the bucket list of lies she used to destroy him.
The actual content of what they're writing is so sinister.
Her to-do list is done, and so is she when we track her down.
You're not sorry for anything that you've done.
Next on Right Between the Lies.
Well, we've all heard the song, breaking up is hard to do, but next tonight here, when it turns into a true nightmare. Authorities say a woman willing to lie to do anything, and we mean anything, to destroy her ex. What did she send his co-workers? They had never seen him quite like this before. Here again, Matt Gutman.
While coaching his son's football team, Joe Good was bowled over, not by the play, but by the pretty blonde on the sidelines, Tawny Blazejowski.
You know, her son was on the same team as my son. Then we started, dating after when I got divorced.
Joe and Tawny could have been a modern-day Brady Bunch. Tawny is mom to 4. Joe is the father of 2, each with a divorce under their belt, and together they found passion.
And she was a lot of fun. She was a great change from marriage.
Life with her was pretty good.
She was awesome.
And what the smiles on boozy Caribbean cruises tell in pictures, Tawny's love letters tell in words.
She's very passionate and enthusiastic in everything she does.
Were you ever in love with her?
Yeah, I was in love with her.
Their love blossoms here along the shores of sunny St. Augustine, Florida. Life, for a time at least, is heavenly. Joe lives here on Paradise Pond Road, managing insurance claims for a national company. Tawny tucked away in this nearby cozy cul-de-sac. And after 2 years of dating, Joe proposes. Here's the ring, and here's Tawny's excited Facebook post. But when Joe drags his feet on setting a date, Tawny drags him under.
Did you ever get any indication that there might have been something a little bit off with her?
There were red flags. She would get upset about things.
Didn't go away?
No, they kept on, and the time frame between when she'd get mad got shorter and shorter. And it escalated to where finally she asked me, do you want me to just go ahead and cancel the vacation I got planned for you? And I said, yeah, sure, I'm done. I'm tired of this crap.
The engagement is now very off.
So you called her bluff?
I said, yeah, cancel it. Immediately the phone rang. And she was, are you sure this is what you want? Because I got everything lined up that I'm going to ruin you. And I'm like, what? About a half hour after that conversation, I get a text message on my phone that my Yahoo password had been changed.
The bond that almost led to marriage breaks in the time it takes to send an email. Tawny, scorned, hacks Joe's personal email account, and an epic cyber-stalking campaign begins. First campaign stop, Joe's employer.
That night, I just went to bed, got up the next morning real early, went into work, opened up my work email, and there's 14 emails that I was CC'd on that were sent to the CEOs of the company.
Saying what?
Pornographic pictures.
Not just any pornographic pictures, one of them features Joe in, well, happier times. We won't go any lower, but Tawny would. She FedExes these packages to all of the members of his company's board. Inside, sex toys and condoms. As if your colleagues seeing you naked isn't the stuff of nightmares, surprise! The torment really begins with a polite knock on the door at 2 a.m.
The night of October 19th, things changed.
What happened that night?
1:30, opened up the door, and there's a police officer. Yeah, and he goes, Mr. Good, yeah, we'll step on out here. So you want to tell me what happened? You and your girlfriend have a little altercation tonight? And I was like, what are you talking about? I've been here all night long.
In the middle of the night, Tawny drives to the sheriff's office. The pictures of her bloodied face show what she told cops that night. Joe beat her.
Do you think she had it in her to whack herself in the face?
Oh, yeah. Slam a door on her face.
She was able to exploit these systems that are there to actually protect us, systems that we have faith in.
I ended up going to jail that night. Because here's the thing. A girl says a guy hit her. Most people think, well, the guy hit her. They don't think the girl's lying.
Despite Joe's alibi, a judge slaps him with a protection order, which Tawny then uses to get Joe arrested a second time. She tells cops that Joe is making harassing calls, threatening her life. How does she pull this off? Well, she's become an expert in spoofing, a cyber-stalking trick that makes it seem as if Joe is calling Tawny, even when he's not.
So she's now calling the police saying that I'm calling her breaking the injunction violation.
Then Tawny spoofs again. making it appear as if Joe's threatening her from his work number. And this time, she says, she's got the voicemails to prove it. Listen.
I still have a gun. I know where you are, and I'm coming for you. I should have told you.
We now know it's probably Tawny digitally manipulating her voice. But back then, cops hadn't caught on yet, and they arrest Joe for a third time. By now, his employer has had it. They fire Joe. During all of this, Joe takes a little vacation with his new girlfriend, Mariella Murphy. One wonders why he'd ever return, but when he does...
There's the airport security asking, "You Mr. Good?" "Yes, sir. Step over here with me." They'd got a tip that I was smuggling drugs in from D.C.
Found nothing, of course.
Found nothing. I said, "There's aspirin in there," but that's the strongest you're going to get. Somehow she found out that I was going to D.C.
As if all of this isn't frightening enough, Tawny is about to tighten the screws, entering even more dangerous and demented territory. Listen to this. It's Tawny calling a Florida abuse hotline.
There was allegations of him having sex with his daughter, and he's provided all of his children with alcohol.
But Tawny's just getting warmed up.
He himself gets drunk. I think he is having sex with these young teenage girls because he's into child pornography.
Did that ever happen?
No.
But still, investigators don't believe Joe. After all, he's been arrested 3 times. Growing bolder, Tawny now makes it dangerous to just know Joe, finding fresh meat in Joe's colleague at work, Jenny Rober, and, weirdly, Joe's new girlfriend's landlord, Doug Duggan.
She did a Crime Stoppers tip to me, accusing me of allegations against my kids.
Making pornography with your children?
Yes.
So she accused you of being the most horrible type of pedophile.
The things that are on there, I can't even repeat. They're so horrible.
It's hard to imagine Tawny stooping any lower, but she has, now involving the children of relative strangers. As for Mr. Duggan, Joe's girlfriend's landlord, he also gets an anonymous threat, this time through the U.S. Postal Service. We now know it's another special delivery from Tawny Blazejowski, threatening to burn his house down.
Burn it down?
Yeah. I spent a couple of sleepless nights wondering if the house was going to burn this night.
But soon, we turn up the heat on Tawny.
No way, no one's talking to you.
Stay with us.
Don't go away, because Matt does not give up at that door. What we are about to show you here, what was found in that house, a to-do list you will not believe.
Once again, 2020's Right Between the Lies and Matt Gutman.
The stalker of St. Augustine was about to be stalked. Bottle blonde Tawny Blazejowski had become a dangerous loose cannon, menacing 16 people from coast to coast for 7 months, all connected to her ex-fiancé, Joe Good.
How would you define what Tawny did to you?
It was total harassment.
She got him fired, humiliated, blasting his nude photo to his bosses, arrested, accusing him of beating her, investigated, claiming he ran a children's porn ring.
I did everything I could to stay away from her. She was one step ahead of me the whole time.
Cleverly convincing the sheriff's office that Joe Good was bad news.
It was disturbing. Every time you see a police car drive by, are they coming for me? You're on pins and needles all the time.
Not content with just Joe and her crosshairs, Tawny was targeting his kids and even people she never met. His co-workers, his new girlfriend, his girlfriend's landlord. When a desperate Joe asks attorney Brian Shorstein for help, Shorstein flinched.
So you were afraid that she would come after you?
You never knew who would be the target of what it is she was doing. Does anybody want to get involved with this thing?
But he took the risk. First, convincing the sheriff's office that Joe was no victimizer, he was the victim.
The first thing that came into our mind was, what are we missing?
Detectives George Harrigan and Shannon Andrews began connecting the dots.
She had manipulated law enforcement for so long, it was time that we get to the bottom of this and we get the real story.
And quickly, because now Tawny was turning her venom on more children. Joe Good's new girlfriend, Mariella, reported an anonymous letter threatening her then 17-year-old daughter, Erin.
Said, this is what Erin will look like the next time Mariella sees her, if she sees or even talks to Joe Good one more time. And attached was a picture of a mutilated body.
What a horrific thing to send.
This is a death threat.
You're taking it a step too far.
She was the stalker at one point, but when this happened, she became the stalked.
Stalked by investigators and soon enough unable to hide behind her lies. And then a breakthrough in the case. Finding out the anonymous report sent to law enforcement hotlines originated, from Tawny's computer.
You leave an electronic trail, that all came back to her.
It was enough evidence to get a search warrant and show up at Tawny's house.
You knocked on the door, she was home.
Yes.
What'd she look like?
Like a mother at home with her kids.
Totally normal.
Totally normal.
But there was nothing normal about the tiny spiral notebooks Tawny kept in her bedroom. Turns out while her kids were studying, Tawny was scheming.
So this is the first notebook that you saw?
Yes.
So you start flipping through it, and what goes through your mind?
That I can't believe it's actually all here.
7 notebooks, hundreds of pages, daily notes to herself. It's explosive evidence in Tawny's own schoolgirl's handwriting. A meticulous list of her many lies, every detail of her sinister plan in plain ink. Reminders, print naked pic, call self 1,000,000 times, even get picture of decomposed corpse. Dates, March 11th, filed police report on Joe. March 21st, Joe arrested at work. March 28th, made report of child abuse. And once completed, each dirty deed crossed off the list. On the margins, the haunting word, done.
I certainly did not think I would walk out of that home and have a manuscript of everything she had done and planned on doing.
The cat had become the mouse, and Tawny had set her own trap. Tawny was arrested that night.
And once we explained to her that she would be arrested, she wrote a list out of things for her ex-husband to do in reference to their kids.
She was good at lists.
No, she was very good at lists.
Please see the place later.
And finally, prosecutors would present a judge with another list, Tawny's lengthy catalog of crimes.
3 counts of threats or extortion, 4 counts of aggravated stalking, and 1 count of false report of abuse, child neglect, or abandonment.
Tawny pleaded no contest to 8 felony counts. Last week, the day before her sentencing, we went to Tawny's house. Her daughter answered the door.
I wanted to know if I could speak to your mother.
I mean, she honestly really isn't available right now.
And she would not make herself available.
Go away, no one's talking to you!
At the courthouse the next day, we interviewed 2 of Tawny's many victims.
If she were sitting right here where I'm sitting, what would you say to her?
She needs to understand that there's consequences, because I think that she thought she was above the law.
Hold on. Sure. Cameras roll.
And suddenly, we spotted Tawny walking out of the courtroom. This time, nowhere to hide.
Maybe you want to say something to your victims. Anything. Do you feel any remorse?
You're smiling. Why are you smiling? Something funny. I'm sorry, something funny. You ruined the people's lives right there. You're telling me you sent them porn. You said that their kids were pedophiles. You accused them of being pedophiles.
You have nothing to say.
She would finally talk to the judge, the tormentor now begging for leniency.
I'm pleading with you, Your Honor, to please grant me forgiveness. I ask my victims for forgiveness and for mercy, and for you to please not take me away from my children who need me.
Her lawyers argue that she's got obsessive-compulsive disorder and is bipolar, and that those disorders contributed to her crimes. But the judge has heard enough.
That she be committed to the Department of Corrections for a period of 9 years.
9 years in prison plus 2 years of house arrest, and get this, 19 years of probation. But still, for Tawny's many victims, the anger and the fear are imprinted for life. Joe Good is forever transformed by one woman's obsession and those neat little notebooks.
There were some things that were not yet crossed off. Do you think if she hadn't been arrested, she would have kept going?
I'm sure she would have.
Joe Good had been arrested 3 times for not having done anything wrong.
Correct.
I mean, does the department feel guilty about that, or?
Absolutely. It's changed us forever as far as investigators.
While he's waiting for those arrests to be expunged from his record, Joe's gone from making almost 6 figures to doing lawn work.
If she were here right now and you could ask her any question or tell her anything, what would you say?
Why couldn't you just let go?
So here's the question tonight. What do you think of that sentence? 9 years in prison, 19 years of probation. Too much or too little for all those lives she changed? Let us know. Use the hashtag ABC2020, and we will be right back. That's our program for tonight. Thanks for watching on a Friday evening. I'm David Muir. For Elizabeth and all of us here at 2020, have a good evening. Good night.